Okay, 6 months into lockdown, past videos here, archive here, articles on my website, last week's presentation here. Email me for specific links or slides, and also to send me stuff, which people are doing now. Very nice, thanks for that. Something from Claire just got to me this afternoon, a bit late, but the rest of you, yeah, it goes in if there's room. And okay, so we're going to have contents, three things. Three things. First of all, a general theme, and this week's one is good news with special reference to LTNs and how they don't hold up emergency services. Your pieces to read, consultations, webinars, anything you need to do. Developments in the last week in the UK and London, and then there'll be weekly rolling slides on diversity, delay, past articles to read and consultations, and advertising. I'll try and whip over those ones very quickly. Okay, Claire was helpful, although she's not responsible for this. So it's good news, positive stories. A Birmingham mother of three whose business plan was halted by lockdown, bought an e-bike, e-cargo bike, and everything's wonderful. So that's a nice positive story there. Okay, the positive story of how ambulances are not being held up by LTNs. Someone called Jules Madsen went to the London Ambulance Service public meeting. They said there were no patient safety concerns, significant delays, or significant issues relating to LTNs. Also, John Ball went to the annual meeting, and the London Ambulance Service said they're not aware of any LTNs that have led to any patient safety concerns or any significant delays. It was suggested again by Keith Prince, and Mark, the ranty highwayman, has whipped into that and destroyed that. This is important because in the current local transport today, they've given a comment piece to the guy from the Alliance of British Drivers. Don't know why they do that, but they have. And he says, oh yeah, emergency services being held up. They're not, they're consultees and they're not being held up. Even though it says it in the Sunday Telegraph. Here's a story about a lad who died and the ambulance didn't come quick enough. And if you read it, down at the bottom, a Department of Transport spokesman said, attempting to link this awful tragedy to low traffic neighbourhoods is deeply misleading. The road was closed for the Leeds Half Marathon, not a low traffic neighbourhood. These schemes are backed by extensive engagement with the emergency services, and local authorities are required to consult them before any low traffic neighbourhood is introduced. That's actually quite forceful language from the Department for Transport. You know, to actually say that shows how forceful they are. So, you know, do please use these bits of ammunition. Also, under good news, this may seem a little perverse, but bear with me. It's a tweet from this guy. In North London, amongst other areas, the traffic restrictions are popping up overnight. They're going overnight. Bus lanes, 20-mile-an-hour zones overnight. They want us all on bicycles like China. Actually, China's gone away from mass cycle use, but whatever. It's being made uninhabitable deliberately. Why? And somehow I started giggling at that plaintive why, which may make me a bad person, but anyway, I did. And so that's my good news. Okay, petitions and reading. There's a, look at this video here. There's a petition about getting proper sentencing for hit and run. Very emotive video from the parents of a postman who was hit by a hit and run driver who got a pathetic sentence. It's important to deal with this because people, particularly if they're drunk, actually have an incentive to leave someone dying at the scene, do the hit and run, because they're if anything, if they're caught, they're not going to get a heavier penalty, or not significantly heavier. There's some people are involved in fighting the new white paper on new government pushes on the planning system. Do go to that. There is a webinar in Bristol, which I've mentioned before. That's on Eventbrite, or you can go to Bristol Cycling Campaign. And now a very, very, very special event. Yes, it's the Road Danger Reduction Forum and Road Peace Conference on reducing road danger and empowering local communities. We were going to hold this in April, and then COVID hit, so we're now doing it as a webinar. Got lots of sponsorship. It's going to be held on 2 afternoons later this month. The first one, introduction from our president, Baroness Jenny Jones, then the very wonderful Andy Cox, formerly superintendent of the Met, on what he did with enforcement and reducing road danger in the Met region. Dash cam footage from Chiara Lee, whose husband was killed, and stuff on the technology, stuff from Madison on cyclic bike camera lights, Next Base on dash cams, and a session from Cycling Mikey, who you should know about. A week later is another hour and a half, 2-hour session. Jeremy Leach on how to get involved in reducing speeds in your neighborhood. Claire Rogers from London Cycling Campaign on winning over the local community with regard to low traffic neighborhoods. Your police crime commissioner from Victoria, a panel, and that'll be good. So do get involved in that. I'll be tweeting and publicizing that. Right, stuff to read. Leo Murray listened to Rachel Aldred on BBC and quotes her saying it's not possible to go back to the way things were. Delivering a masterclass in communicating about this LTN stuff, says Leo. So go to that. I don't know how long it'll be up on BBC. Ranty Highwayman went to Redbridge and felt positive about a couple of LTNs there. There is a good list of resources put together by London Cycling Campaign there. Yet another article on why EVs are not enough. A documentary about cycling in Europe, which is on the BBC. That was a half an hour long. Didn't see it myself, but it looked good. Something more about the company car scam you should be aware of. Yet another example of subsidy for motoring. And something in The Guardian today about what we can do to cut emissions, with a lot of emphasis on cutting car use and more cycling, walking in cities. RDRF committee member Lucy Master-Tausig had an article in Transport Extra saying unless the government takes a hands-on approach to low traffic neighbourhood schemes, motor traffic will continue its upward trajectory and cycling will diminish. That's her warning, and it's backed up by no less than St. Chris of Boardman. And he tweets and tags the minister. Yes, we have to do something. Also, in terms of publications, I mentioned the report from the Active Travel Academy. That's out to consultation. You can make your comments. Andy Cox has supported that, particularly with regard to not using the phrase road accident. And also, there's some stuff from Carlton Reid on how Reach PLC has been synchronizing cyclist debating postings. It's all about sort of hate speech, that whole thing, which I think we need to keep talking about. Oops. Okay, and I just put in this slide from last week from Adam Alton comparing number of deaths from COVID and poor air quality. The diversity page, 2 new items. look at the current issue of Cycling UK magazine, which has got a chunk on diversity, inclusive cycling. And Sarah Gallagher, who may be here tonight, is running a webinar, Diversity in Cycling. Here's the delays slide, now 6 months plus 6 lockdown, and it's the fifth time for Alex Ingram's tweet. When is the Department for Transport going to allocate or publicising the remaining 180 million quid of the Emergency Active Travel Fund? It was supposed to be early September. Please, please, please. Okay, so let's go into the UK on the ground. It all depends where you live. So, here's some photographs Ruth Mayorkas took of her journeys in Surrey. Here's an example of shared use. I mean, I don't know if it's two-way and whether motorists are supposed to look both way, how do pedestrians mingle with cyclists? I don't know. We had a session on blistered paving last week. Again, here, you've got that little thing saying there's shared use, that thing saying there isn't shared use. I don't know. Meanwhile, a big chunk of hatching on the carriageway. Here again, this is something that she referred to. Little signs there, shared use, pedestrians presumably supposed to walk through that tree there. Bradford, now some goody stuff from Bradford. Their engineer might be with us this evening. Bradford actually has about the lowest modal share of cycling in the UK, but they are trying to make an effort. So I went to a conference there a couple of years ago. What's interesting here for me on this cycle lane on Wakefield Road is it's quite wide. You've got these kind of square cylinder wand type things, and you've also got orcas. I'm not sure if they're necessary, and you haven't got the unbroken, sorry, solid white line just outside it. This might be because it's early in the stage of implementation when I took that photograph. It's probably different now, but I just thought I'd flag up that photo because that was the one I was sent. In the Wirral, oh dear, right at the beginning, there was an enormous amount of effort put in getting the Brighton beachfront cycle lane in, and now it's been removed, and that's quite bad. There was a hand cyclist who said it had made an enormous amount of difference to him, and now it's out. I really can't see why that should be. So, pop-up cycleway in West Sussex is the quote from West Sussex. It's going in Crawley. Greater Manchester. These are the Greater Manchester people said, big announcements on our walking and cycling network, 55 miles of protected routes and 140 new crossings to be completed by the end of next year. Very little new, but a massive increase in pace of rollout. Yeah. Liverpool Emergency Active Travel Fund Tranche 2. Now, I don't know if that is Tranche 2. If it is, what about all the other Tranche 2 allocations? Anyway, it's for 1.8 million for pop-up routes, came from an FOI. But it'd be interesting to know if anybody else has had anything or had notice of anything which is going in under EATF Tranche 2. Oh dear, Nottingham, please. I showed you the orange advisories last week, and here they've put in some advisories, and guess what? They've got cars in them, and oh yeah, someone's managed to park on the pavement because they didn't want to get in the way of the cyclists, so managed to annoy both cyclists and pedestrians. Yeah, so please up your game, Nottingham. London. Lewisham, the Lib Dems have got behind a campaign against the Lee Green low traffic neighbourhood. It's a big letter from some residents in the Lee Green low traffic neighbourhood saying how terrible it is for them in local transport today. Kensington, Chelsea, the High Street Kensington pop-up cycle lane has gone in or is going in. Jeremy Vine tweeted about it. Croydon, Broad Green, LTN, Derby Road is here. So this is a rat run which has had planters put in. Thanks to whoever sent me that and that information. That is what I'm actually after. I'm after photos, name, and what the advantages of the LTN or other facility will be. Okay, last week I mentioned the protest against the LTN in Hackney, which was advertised here. So I sent one of my agents down to Hackney Town Hall and she sent this photograph. According to her, about 30 people to start off with, up to a couple of hundred people attended, although a lot of them just seemed to be people who were ambling about and saw something was going on and decided to just sort of check it out. So it was after work on a weekday, so, you know, maybe that's not a very big protest. There was also one in Lewisham and didn't seem to have too many people at it. And Hackney now, the latest news is that they are proposing LTNs in all residential areas, as well as the ones which they're putting in now, and they've also had many for at least 10 years. In Richmond, here's a nice photograph from Ruth Maolkas. Bit of a problem with leaf nuisance and puddling, but there's your sorry, not advisory at all. There's your mandatory solid white line, and there are going to be ones going in, although if it's TfL money, they'll be just on the inside. Judicial reviews are being sought by some residents over the loss of parking bays for cycle lanes in Islington and Ealing. Hopefully the lawyers in both those councils have been doing the right thing, and those JRs should be fought off, hopefully, successfully. Oh dear, Haringey has had a reputation for being pretty crap for a long time. And here's their tweet. This is from comms people who are well trained in getting the right message across to advertising their cycle training. Intermediate should mean someone who knows how to ride a bicycle and who can do bikeability level 2, level 3. And what they've chosen for an image is track pursuit cyclists. Now, you know, with solid disc wheels, no brakes, tri-bar extensions, aero helmets. That is not how you advertise cycling as a mode of local transport. And if anybody says, oh, well, yeah, it's just an image, you know, this is from people who are trained in getting the right image over. Okay, so there's your slides on campaigns and reading and consultations. Onto the adverts. Here's one from the 90s I dragged out of my files. There was a wave of subvertising, as it was called. I'll try and dig some more out. If anybody's got any of photos of what was being done with adverts in the 90s, do get in touch. So that's it, my streamlined thing. Gone in a few minutes quicker than normal.
Oh, well done, Bob. Yeah, that was very organised and very streamlined. Yeah, big
Any
claps, all
comments,
right.
anybody?
Yeah, anybody got any points of order or comments for Bob? Anything we should have known about?
Just Leicester's still waiting on EATF2, but is busy getting shovel ready and has between 5 and 7 LTNs planned. And they're not publicising them yet till they've got the councillors behind them, and then doing it that way around. And they're looking for good advice on how to roll them out and what sort of stuff to go in. So anything you've got for Sustrans, that'd be great.
Excellent. Yes, Simon. Yeah, go for it.
I was just going to add that campaign resources from LCC is just going to be updated whenever Simon Seller or I or anyone from the team does anything that's worthy of other people knowing about. So bookmark it. It already includes my possible magnum opus, which is all of the evidence around the Walter Forest Mini Holland schemes, all rolled into one big blog with loads and loads of stuff about kind of folks who are opposing schemes and keep saying about Walter Forest and how that's right or not right, or what bits are right of their stuff and not, etc.
Yeah, it's definitely worth a look at that.
I mean, maybe people want to also write into Local Transport Today and say, look, if you do want to give a comment piece to the Alliance of British Drivers, perhaps you should check up on stuff like delays to emergency services, because it's a bit of a serious allegation.
All right, that's fair enough. I think we'll roll on to the next bit because we've still got 3 speakers, and I'm finally going to do the speed run and put myself on first rather than last. And no, because I know what I'm going to say, I kind of leave myself to the end because I'm more excited to see what other people do. But we'll go for it. So what I'm going to talk about is do a speed run of a low traffic neighbourhood, like an overall walking and cycle network plan. Really, that's what we're going to. I see that lots of people have been giving this a go online and trying it, so I thought I'd share a few tips of what I look out for. So let's share my screen and start the speed. Yeah, I'll share my actual screen. That's probably quicker. All right, where am I? Oh, I'm in Wigan at the moment. Don't worry about that. I want to do this place here. Down south a bit. Here it is, right in the middle of England. Couldn't have been better located. Wellingborough, that's the one that I got a list on Twitter of all the suggested places. I'm going to do them all in my own time for fun. I think I've done 3 or 4 so far, but we'll do Wellingborough, which I was told was like the worst place for active travel in the UK. So let's see if we can sort that one out a little bit. Just clicked on Wellingborough. I've never been to Wellingborough. I know nothing about it, but these images are telling me a lot. Telling me got a little bit of a one-way maybe in that high street and lots of space for parking, but not too much footway. There's some woods, and it's a large market town. There you go, 11 miles from Northampton. Let's get in there. Not too far from Leicester, where it's all happening. There's Northampton, bit of Milton Keynes, and there's me with the Luton Massive. All right, let's go in there. Let's have a look at the shapes. And yeah, so the technique I'm going to show you is like just looking at the shapes. Just looking at the shapes, you can plan this whole thing. Already at that zoom level, I know what the network is, but I'm going to draw it on for everybody else because that's telling me everything. I've got this outer ring road type thing here. I've got the railway over this side. This is our area, and already these are the kind of pies of the low traffic neighbourhood. But we'll show what happens next. So I'm going to transfer that, and we'll refer back to that when I need to see specific streets into AutoCAD, so I can do it quick. All right, so there's Wellingborough, that's the town centre. Here's the rest of it. So what do? It's like the B network planning stuff. I'm going to take a poly line, I'm going to make sure it's red. I'm just going to colour all those barriers in. I know it's yellow, it's going to be rough. And by what I've heard about Wellingborough, doesn't sound like there's too many tracks out there, so not too much I have to worry about. Let's just colour these things in. Do it nice and quick. The fun bits will be coming up. It's a fairly obvious bit of barrier. Come on, computer. It was always going to happen. I was always going to freeze doing a speed run. All right, don't take that off my time. We are going to get this whole thing done in half an hour, I swear. Well, I'm not sure about this one. Hardwick Road, whether it should be or not. It might just be the cut through. So I'm just going to have a quick look at Hardwick Road before I colour that in on this one. It's showing all my emails. Let's drop our little fella there. Well, look at that. Oh, no, we've got to make roads like that work, okay. You do get certainly outside London, there's certainly lots of A roads that are this wide, but I'm not prepared to paint that red yet. That could well be part of the network. This one here, this A road, okay, I bet it's a narrow one. Let's just have a little look at that. All right, bloody thing, Brian. This is the job, people. Let's just have a little look at what that A road's like. All right. All right. It's looking a bit more barrier-like, but yeah. I'm checking out the potential for whether you could cycle on there or could make it good. It's kind of the narrow rural A road, going to be full of loads of traffic. So I think we're talking a barrier there. I'm basically deciding what we can potentially use as part of the network and what's a write-off unless we do something massive. This, I'm going to suggest, is a bit of a write-off. So this is something that needs to be overcome, or something particularly impressive needs to happen with it. Now Hardwick, I've not given up on. I'll have a look at this Westfield Road in a minute, but that looks like it's going to stay quite busy. We'll just draw these on quite quick. So yeah, the thickness of Google is kind of telling me all the ones that I need to worry about. I'm already looking now. Okay, there's a main road here, but there's primary schools. Oh, interesting. Here's a town centre one. I've got another A road going around it. So I've got a town centre style that I need to think about. How do we get across? And already, I mean, I tend to do things like step by step, but I'm already thinking in parallel. So I'm thinking that Hardwick, oh, that gets me in there, that gets me out there. Potential routing, potential area going on there. Could this be a big one where we split it into two cells? Let's have a little think about it. I'm not giving up on that road just yet for humanity. This one here I am though. It's telling me that there's massive roundabouts on there. They're going to be big to sort out. Another big roundabout. We're right the way through to the railway line there, which is clearly acting as a barrier there. Let's check this one out. What's that called? Finneydon Road. Reading it up now. Findon, thank you. Hasn't got two ends. Yeah, look at that. Teeny weeny. We can't give up on a road like that. It's all looking good. So I'm not going to give up on this one. I'm going to use the railway line as my kind of outer barrier for the cell. So I'm not giving up on that at all. Let's just mark that on for later. What's this one down here? This one by here. I'm just checking this one out down here to see how bad that is. Whether it's because we're kind of like, we're looking at barriers, but we're also deciding the perimeters of the cells. Let's have a look at that one down there. Now let's drop our little fella. Ooh, look at that. People living on it. Life must happen here. I'm not going to write that off as a barrier. Looking certainly at this bit, people have got like a off-street parking. So this is just bonus fun parking. That's like screaming out for some kind of protection as far as I'm concerned. Dead easy pop-up material. So I'm not going to include that one. This one down here. Just going to check out this one here on near Wellingborough School. So it's a school. So I'm already thinking something along this corridor because there's so many schools that go along it, and it goes right into the town centre. And like I could just look at the propensity to cycle tool or the rapid cycleway prioritisation toolkit to find these things, but it's nice having a little look. All right, this is what a barrier looks like. Let's colour that red. But right at this stage, I'm jumping to the end game of which barrier I want to take hold of and do something transformational on. Actually, the plan in the end would be to do them all, but I've got my eye on this one. Something potentially good. Starting to come together, starting to get the cells. Let's just check this one out here, Doddington Road. So it could well be a nice route through this area that connects all the cul-de-sacs, or it's a barrier to be overcome. So I'm just going to check that one out. Doddington Road. Just going to look where the people live. It's going to be carrying a fair bit, but again, there's residents out here. There's human life, but it looks slightly problematic. At this stage, I'm going to colour this red. So I'm worried I'll be able to do anything. There's probably a fair few cars going down there. They look quite fast. A little bit of an issue. Obviously, you check all this out, and that's why we're doing a kind of speed run. It's got the makings of cells here. Just for the sheer funness, I'd quite like to close this off, but I did look at all these, didn't I? And decided they were okay. I'm just going to look at this road here, Croydon Road. It's Croydon. What do you like? And residential does look a little bit barrier. Let's have a look at that junction. All right, I've seen enough. That's a problem. Now, all the ones I'm leaving behind, I'm saying I'm going to do something on these. You're either a barrier or I'm going to drop some filters on you. Like I say, I'm not quite prepared to give up on Hardwick, but it might be carrying a fair amount of traffic up and down there. Just by looking at it, it looks in the 8,000 to 10,000 a day camp, but I'm not going to give up on it just yet. That's our kind of first stage. We kind of got larger ones. I might finesse it somewhat. I'll look at a different area around the town centre. There's obviously some kind of gyratory system going on there that's going to be a little bit of a problem, but we'll pick that up in a bit. So then it's like, okay, where do we need to drop some crossings? I'm looking like, okay, if we're saying that we can do something to make all these streets okay, where are the obvious kind of connector points? I'm looking along this cell to get into this cell, and how would we join it up? Oh, this one here. This one here is looking good, but I'm a bit worried that it's called Kingsway, so let's go back and have a look at that. Kingsway sounds like it could be slightly problematic. And we've got areas. Let's have a look what Kingsway looks like. Ooh, yeah, actually that's looking quite barrier-like. We could do. We've definitely got the space to do something pretty substantial here for cycling. So it's not like space is the problem in Wellingborough. On some of these big barrier roads, there are places to do pretty significant tracks. Let's have a look at that. Potentially that's another one of our barriers through there. I'll colour it red at the moment. All right, so that was going to be my way out of that cell, but I've decided to write it off because it looked a bit difficult. So now, well, where else can we get to make some kind of connection? It looks like this one could be, and I get the connection to the primary school, and I get up, oh, look, and there's an academy there. There's more schools going on here. All right, I'm gonna drop in some crossings now. Let's do that. There's a crossing I made earlier. Looking, where can I join these things up? I mean, there's potential to come through here, but if I come through here, if I put a crossing there, then I get access to all this lot here, and you'll get access to the park. But then, actually, not too bad at getting through to the school there. And it might be a little bit more lined up as well. Let's go and check that out. Let's go and check that out. Which one's the best? For potential crossing. Zooming around quite nicely now. We're on that one here. Is it here? Is it the next one? Could just look at the satellite view at this stage to see which one's lined up better. Yeah, potentially like I quite like this shape here on this one, which is kind of leading me away from this one. Because one I've got like with this one with the dog leg, it's the really awkward dog leg to put across, and it's a left-right. So if you're coming left out of here as a cyclist, then you're hanging around in the middle of the road to do a right, rather than a right-left where you do a right out, but then you've got an easy left off. So that's an awkward shape for me to put the crossing. Here is looking a bit more aligned. And what I really like about this as a potential crossing point is like there's lots of access roads coming in and out. So potentially you could close that off. And there's not even too much to worry about there. Anybody come down here has got either a turning head or a closure. So there's a potential for a double closure there. And it's lined up straight across, which would make a really decent potential crossing. I want to see that, what I'm seeing on there. So there's no reason to not block both of these things off. Like you've got like a potential for a full closure there, full closure there. I will design one of these up as well as part of the speed run. But yeah, I'm quite happy that that looks like a decent spot for a crossing now. I'll just click on the wrong button again and stick my bingo. Right, okay. Bingo, we're looking good. We've got in here and we've got access to all these streets now and all these schools. And I go, all right, Coyland, I thought might have had potential, albeit it looks to the barrier there. Oh, could have come through here. Can we do something to kind of close that off? This will get nicer. Potentially, oh look, we can come through here and get onto some kind of path that happens that gets you to the brook and the museum. Oh, yes, round here. I've got no other way to go. Now, I could investigate, but some kind of crossing needs to happen there, or this lot are cut off from that lot. And it needs to be here. So I need to do something along Coyland Road to kind of calm that down later. But that's your potential crossing. So already I've got an in and out here. Now, the town centre's over here, so I need to get people through this way. Now we're looking, okay, if they go through the gardens, can they get into the town centre? Is there like a potential pedestrian route through there? Let's have a little look. Speed, Brian, map. Just going to have a little look at the connection to the town centre around through here. What's around here, wasn't it? That's the office, museum. Can we get through? Can we get through? Well, it gets you there, but not necessarily through. There's any kind of path there. I just want to look at how bad this is. So that's the road we'll be coming out of, and the high street kind of is what it is. All right. Come back to that way. So it looks like there's potential for some kind of connections through from the gardens here. So not sure exactly where, and maybe there's a punch through there, but at least we'll have a little look at that. Starting to come together, and I've got like the makings of a decent route. So if I was to stick an old route in here and go right, I can go down here, I can go down here, and go down here, go down here. Yes, it will be easier to go on one of these barriers. We kind of got the connection. Here's looking good. That's like the most obvious way to go. That's the route. All this will start filtering later, but that's an obvious route to take. Coming through this way, I've got an on-street one, or there might be actually what looks like a nice path through there. But we'll assume it's in terrible condition because we're in the UK and kind of feed something through on this greenway through the gardens.
Yeah, it's rubbish, Brian.
Yeah, I thought it might be. They usually are. Okay, so we've got the makings of like this cell's got connections coming out the other way. Which way do we go? Well, we've got a crescent here. I'm going to get across that greenway. Looks like there might well be some existing crossings over here on that. We don't know. I'll have a look at it. What I really like about this one is that there's a crescent and a double crescent. So double crescent side, close off one side, Brian, and you can just do a double closure feed through. So I'm going to have a little look at that just to see how that, and I will eventually stop pressing the wrong button. Let's have a look at this Kingsland doesn't double crescent. What's going on here? Well, there's space to do stuff, isn't there? There's space to take things through with the crescent here. So the way I like crescents is you could effectively send all cars and buses that way, and they can go in and come out, and I can close this off, but people can still get access into their houses and drives, which will give me something nice. Got what looks like a weird bit of car parking going on. That looks fairly antisocial. Weirdly, though, there's another one on the other side, so let's investigate that. Because potentially I could drop a crossing right here. Well, at this stage, I don't have to be perfect. I just have to think, well, would I get it in? Yeah, it's their own personal car park, and why not? We can have some of that. I'm quite thinking of that. Again, it's like this would be a tricky left-right one, but if I can use this and close this up because it's a crescent, I can use this space to kind of put in some kind of track and feed people into the side road. So, yeah, I'm quite liking the look of that one. I'm quite liking the look of that side. Crossing, carry on. Well, let's take our route to there then. Already, we're looking quite nice in this area, and actually we've got a whole plethora of options, and we want to get some density in the town centre. So which way would be the obvious way? Let's see where we can pop out on the other side. Probably want to pop out here. I've got a route that there might be something nice through the park, or you can go around the edge. Might be a little bit tricky there though. Or come out here and make a connection across. Undecided on that yet. Let's have a look at this. Now, I've always had Hardwick in mind, and because it seems quite reasonable, and I really like this line as a potential black line, as like something that you should really transform where there's space. So that could be quite a nice through route corridor in there. So I'm holding on to Hardwick, and what I like about Hardwick as well is like this roundabout. Let's have a little look at that roundabout on Hardwick. I'll tell you why I like it in a minute, because it's a potential closure. Difficult to filter. Let's have a little look at it. Oh yeah, look at that. So the things about roundabouts, now roundabouts are terrible if you go through, but if you close one arm of a roundabout, what a great filter. All the people can go around and bugger off. And all the people can go around, bugger off there. So you don't really have to do turning heads if you are thinking of that one. So I'm going to keep that one in the back of my head. Let's click on that one.
Brian, just a note, Hardwick Road is the road that all the cyclists in Wellingborough use to get out of town, because it's the only really safe route from the town centre towards Kettering and Northampton. They go the long way round to use that road to get out of town, so good call.
Brilliant, yeah, like it's screaming out for it, isn't it? That kind of local knowledge has given me confidence to start dropping some more green dots on it.
I'm ever so sorry I was late today.
Oh no, it's all good. Got to kind of punch a hole through there on Hardwick. So we're getting our routes in now. We've got something pretty direct, and but yeah, I'm worried about the through traffic on Hardwick. So we're going to have a look at it. If that's our main route through the cell, then you know it's potential like for closure, or to steer everybody that way and steer everybody that way and remove it as a through route. Should be a really cool thing to do to a roundabout as well, to turn it into two turns. Anyway, Brian, jumping ahead of ourselves. So what's the most obvious connection to make over to this? Hot tub hire. Can we get through there? There's some kind of path near hot tub hire. Let's have a little look at that. I'm doing a speed run. Don't know we're at for time.
It's a footpath next to a high school, Brian. It's designated no cycling, but it's ideal.
There you go. So listen, normally when I would do this, I'd do it with a whole bunch of stakeholders and pose the kind of questions, but it's fantastic having you there, Tom, for this. I think we've got to go through there then, haven't we?
Most importantly, you've already covered my house, so it's fine.
Oh, good. Yeah, it looks like there's a fair bit of potential around there. Let's get on to that one. So we were here, and we're looking like there's a decent way through here. We might need a little bit of improvement, but potentially you've got the makings of a decent route over here. I think maybe there's an upgradable path there that'll get you into the main road. We also have the option of coming up Queensway. How do we get out of this thing? Looks like there might be some path. What's that path like by the Olympic School, Tom? It's saving me time here, speeding up the...
That's not too bad. Olympic Primary School is probably the worst in the whole town for traffic issues and parents throwing stones at each other's cars.
Yeah, we'll sort that one out next. Looks like we've got a connection in and out of the cell there. And there's some green route way here, which could be really pleasant, like getting over towards the school. So let's not write that off in this area. We'll have a little look.
Yeah, that's perfectly acceptable.
Yeah, it looked like it might be. Going off the shapes. All right, we're starting to get these cells together now. Let's have a look how we connect over here now. It's pretty radically severed from itself by the river, but there is a little bit of a connection up here again, like a greenway connection, and it's either that or what's going on here. Potential filters and all sorts that are already in place. Let's have a look at We're Close. I'll punch myself in the face if I do that again. We're close up here. What's around here, wasn't it? I was looking at the one down here. Here we go. We're close. Here we are. It looked better on the other one. Let's make a connection.
Yeah, you can actually get across there, Brian, but it's not a usable route at the moment. Yeah, it's scrubland.
It looks tricky. Let's have a look. Be tricky going that way, but maybe there's some space. But I'm going to try and get some obvious ones. There's the potential obvious connector there. I'll just speed things up a little bit. And it looks like there's some kind of a connection there. And the way that goes round suggests that there might be some decent ramp or what goes underground, whatever. So
yeah, that path that cuts the corner is good.
Yep. Yeah. See, it looks all right from the shape. And that's all we can tell on the kind of speed one.
The bit next to it with the spiral's horrid. There's a spiral across the main road there, and it's totally unusable. It's a pedestrian and cyclist bridge, but it's two tight, steep spirals with several width restrictions on, and you couldn't make it acceptable. It's too tight and too steep.
So I've got a little bit of a feasibility issue with this point then.
Yeah, but your route to the east is fine there. That route down, that little green route to the east, south of the Ockendale, is perfectly acceptable. It's going west that's no good.
Okay. Oh, that's the bit I've just drawn in. But that's tricky. All right, for the purpose, let's have a look at this cell in a bit more detail. And so there's no way out round the south. It is what it is there. But what we've got to think about as a next stage, I could go through and continue these ones through, and it looks like I'm going to have to do some kind of crossing here. That's a must. The shapes are telling me there's no other way to go. So that's the one to fight over, because then you can make the connections through to the rest of the network.
Yeah, that nodal point that you've put in just south of the job centre, is that route ought to be far more used than it is. It's
just like where else would you go?
Yeah, it's perfectly doable, but the way they've done it at the moment, there's a Toucan crossing that's on the wrong side of that junction that forces people to cross three sides of a square. But there's no reason why that couldn't be fixed. That's a very sound call.
Good man. Now, it's a bit messy on the town centre, and in order to not use all the time up, I might leave that to later, but I'm definitely interested in that one.
Can I just clarify, Brian? Sorry to butt in. The green spots.
Please, yeah, no, it's useful.
Are the green spots proposed point closures?
No, these are proposed crossings of the barriers, so that's why I kind of, you might have missed it when I zoomed into one, and I'll design one up quickly later, but yeah, these are crossings. What we're going to do next is decide.
So our aspiration, the locals' aspiration is to close the main road right in the heart of the town centre, because it bisects the shopping area.
Okay.
And so that A5193 right in the middle is the bit that we would like to see closed to through motor traffic.
Well, yeah, it's funnily enough, just off the shapes, I was going to draw a big black line like that and say that's your corridor.
Yeah, so the road
and that's probably what's going to pick up. In fact, I'll do that now to make you happy. Because that's
the road that
all the schools, it's where all the action is.
Yeah, the road that cops it, there was actually a temporary closure there the other day for roadworks planned. And the road that cops it is Croyland Road, which is really important for cyclists in the town. But as soon as you do what we'd like to do in the town centre, it's going to, the displaced traffic will naturally head for that Croyland Road, which is vulnerable at the moment at best and is important to everyone.
So, I mean, yeah, this is the sort of thing you check on the propensity to cycle tool. All right, that for me is looking like your key corridor that gets you right through the whole joint, and we've got pretty decent connectors going off there, just off the shapes, and we already did a sample check on a few places, and it looked like there was width. So it'd be interesting to see what it says on the rapid cycleway prioritization tool, which tells you where's the potential for trips and where's the available width. That looks like it's screaming out for it. Well, let's get inside the cells now and start using our purple ones. We've already got the makings of a pretty functional network that connects up all these cells, and we can start thinking about the names. But ideally, like, let's take this one. Let's go off this one because it's an interesting one. It's got a school in there. No cars should be able to go through. So you're looking for where cars do go through and trying to stop it in the least damaging way. Now, I'm really quite into this one here. What's that? Monk's Way. Monk's Way is looking like a potential one because I'm worried about cars doing this and ruining my low traffic neighbourhood, and I'm also worried about them doing this on the primary school way. So these are my two kind of iffy points. So I'm looking, well, what can I do to stop that off? Now, I quite like this bridge and the primary school on Croyland Road, because really we want people who are going in cars to be able to get in to access all the roads, but have to go all the way around to get to there. So let's have a look at Croyland Road. There we go. We're doing speed. We're doing all right.
Croyland Road was on the telly when we were on Look East the other week talking about all of this stuff.
Yeah, well, yeah, it looks like the one, doesn't it? All right, where was I? Croyland Road, and we're talking about a closure, and where's the school? Croyland Road. I was looking at it here on the school. Let's have a look at it. It's tricky. I've got this road here, and I've got the end of the nursery. Let's have a look at Henshaw. Right now, I'm just looking to see where I can turn cars around while still allowing access. Now look at this is giving me a nice juicy radius here, and potentially I can have cars turning and going back on themselves that get to this point here and swinging it all the way around like that for that lot. The space to do it, so I've got a potential one. I mean, it's a B road, so it's going to be a ballsy move filtering this one, but really there are other main roads for it to go around. There's a question of like how much they want it safe for that school, whether you do need another B road there when we've got the kind of major roads around it. It'd be a kind of tough decision, but there is space to actually turn stuff around. Oh, and look at that shape there. That's like just screaming out to be a turning point. So I'm looking, you've got some options there, and I'll have to have a think about it, but I probably would absolutely freak everybody out by recommending one. Let me just get
There's land take there to do it, and the council's about to sell it off, ironically.
Magic.
There's definitely land take for exactly that.
Well, that is all good. Let's have a little look at that round there then. For me, this is a potential filter point. Coming through the other way, it's quite nice that you've got turning points here, but so I'd quite like to drop something there to stop it. Because if you're going to drop a filter, you don't want them to start pulling off and going through everywhere else. So it's a question of like plugging the gaps. But two would pretty much do that whole side of the cell. The rest of it naturally filters itself. So we're done in that cell. That's what I'd really push for, and I'd really try and get something down there, because otherwise Croydon Road looks quite a tricky one to treat and make it.
The alternative is by Dale End Park. Just by the word park, there is a width restriction and a give way at the moment that the local drivers hate and are trying to get removed. So that could be the beginnings of your point closure as well, equally.
Okay, so there's a potential for one in there. Are you still like, because there's all sorts of different ways in. I'm worried about I mean, the Waltham Forest, like in the Hackney way would be to close around the perimeter. You do a lot more closures, but I kind of looked at what's the minimum amount of closures I can do that has the big effect on that area. So everybody here is going, yeah, fine, I still go all the ways I want to go. But everybody coming from here to go through is like, yeah, no chance anymore. So that's kind of what I was looking at. I'll do this cell as well to do one more. And I was trying to do it in half an hour, but we've had some nice chats as well. Now, this one's a tricky one because there's lots of obvious cut-through roads, and I've made a bit of a serious one through there as well. But like, kind of got a school here, so there's something potential nice to happen there. Let's have a little look at this. I'm quite excited about this point here on Queensway. Let's have a little look. On. Do that every time now. That's just part of the routine. Let's have a look at this here, Queensway. This turning point. Yeah, because we've got a nice little cul-de-sac here. So if I can like throttle all the traffic on Queensway, then everybody gets access over here, and everybody gets access over here. So let's have a little look at this this junction. Again, quite nice and spacious to do a kind of turning head there and to bend them all back in there. And there's no one that needs any access all the way along there because there's not much frontage, just these couple of cars. They've got their own driveways, so no one else would be going down there. And there's a major road for them to turn off earlier. So potentially I could just do a, so yeah.
The other big one for this cell is that other one you've just shown, Brian, which is Brick Hill Road, which has got a high school in the middle of it, a junior school at the far end of it, at the town end of it, and is a proper old mess at the moment. And some of the mess along there is now being blamed on the school street just round the corner from it, of course. But Brick Hill Road, we had a very serious injury of a child cyclist leaving the school there not so long ago. It's all 20 limit and not enforced, but there's loads of public land to do stuff like you're showing now. That's all public realm land there.
Just gonna do a quick, oh, come on now. Just do a quick design here, and then I'm gonna get the ladies to speak.
So, Brian, would your intention be that you're saying to everybody you use the orbital road to get around the town? Is that the fundamental precept here? You use the ring road?
Dutch style. Yeah, so you got some roads that become like more full of traffic, but everybody that's going in off one of the primary roads, your A's and B roads, actually lives there.
Yeah.
So they get their full access, but no one's cutting through anymore. You're keeping that on the major roads, and you're treating them for air quality and the like.
There's loads of capacity on that ring road. You know, it's been built for heavy traffic, heavier than it takes at the moment. So that bit of it, we've always said as locals, that road ought to be taking a lot of the traffic that's cutting through the town centre.
I agree.
And this road's one of them. This is brilliant. All
right, done like that. And they've got places to go in there. So we'll show one. What I will do, Tom, is finishing off, but I want to let some other people talk in there. So what we've actually got is the making. Oh, I'll put that right over there. Hold on. Just to do move. Put CAD. forget that for now. All right, so yeah, we've got like what I think is going to be where you've got space. There was like a huge amount of space along this corridor. It looks like an obvious one. First thing I do would check PCT and rapid cycleway to see what happens. Got the makings of decent cells around it, potential crossing points. Some of them are the only way to go. Some there might be some other options. Couple of potential filters around schools and the like that we're looking at. And that's really it. I'll finish it off with the rest of the filters so that there's no obvious cut throughs. And it might well be like you'd feedback and go, no, we need that road. That's got to carry cars. And then we go, all right, it's red, it's a barrier. This is our new cell. So I've started in a bit of like a egalitarian one, but that just means there's more stuff to close. But with the shapes and the cul-de-sacs off it, then I mean, it's ripe. It's ripe for some decent filtering. This area. I don't think the shapes are hard here. Normally, the issue shapes are where you've got really long, narrow A roads and nothing but cul-de-sacs off. That's when it starts falling apart, and you go, "Oh my God, what can you do?" You've got like a really decent connecting opportunities to happen over here, and we tie that in with some filters. You've got a reasonable network coming together. So that's the kind of approach. I'll finish that off and tweet it later today, but I'm hoping that kind of speed run is give some people some ideas of what to look for. And the shapes kind of tell you everything. And sometimes it's just a logic puzzle. You stop, where's difficult? How do we get across it? How do we join that up? How do we stop any car going all the way through that cell and just block it in with the minimum amount of points and leaving turning heads? That's a kind of crucial point as well. And just by going that, you get the basics of like your local network plan. And that's kind of what's missing when you look at the LC whip stuff. It's telling you these. It's telling you these. No one's telling you how to pick up all the local network stuff. There's a little bit in LTN 120 about the bikeability stuff, but there's a little bit of an art to it, and every shape's different, so it's hard to kind of break it down. But that's how I do it. And over the next few weeks, I'll do another 10 that people sent me the list of, and you can see just from the shapes and a quick bit of Google Street Viewing how you can put something together quite quickly. Normally takes me an hour. I was trying to do it in half an hour, but I got a bit ambitious. But to be honest, we're like 80% of the way there to sorting out Wellingborough, I think. And in some instances, there's no other options. You either do this or we write it off. Let's get all the plans together and start building them. Right, and on that, I'll throw over some questions because we still got some presentation. I've got 1 minute, and then I'll open it up to Jen O'Brien. And
Brian, I'll just really quickly say thanks so much for doing my hometown. It was so fascinating to watch it. It's just that, as you're going on Street View, I think, God, that's what I've cycled down for the last like 10, 15 years, and it's horrible. And it was just so interesting watching how potentially, the town could change by implementing those measures. So thank you very much. Thank you.
A good mind. Yeah. Normally it take a little bit longer doing it, but I thought it's nice to show how quick you can do it. It's like it is what it is in terms of its shapes, but like so much potential there, I think. All right, shall we might come back to the end for a bit of a discussion. I'll calm myself down for my speed run now and introduce Jen O'Brien, who's going to share with us some good academic stuff. Jen, are you there? Oh, she is. I'm going to go to Jane.
She's definitely here, Brian.
Jen, unmute yourself. Make yourself be known.
I've spent all summer on Zoom and I still forget to unmute. I do apologise. I am an academic. I can't live without PowerPoint. Do you mind if can I share hosting to share my screen with you? Is that okay?
Please do. Yep, that's great.
Oh, perfect. I can. I should also just give a health warning. It's tea time into bedtime in my house. So if I switch off the video suddenly, it's because two small children are doing something that no one needs to see, let alone be captured on a recording. So I apologise if that.
I know that one, Jen. You're all good.
We've been through chocolate biscuits already, so I've got nothing left, I'll be honest. Okay. So, thank you. Wait a second. Jessica. Apologies, just be a minute. Girls, Mama needs a minute. Come with me. Come on.
Yeah, they do sound quite young.
Sorry.
All right, we want to get some good age ranges talking on ideas.
Yeah, sorry. 1-year-old is
she
likes active neighbourhood. She's just a little bit young for them at the moment. So I was asked to pitch to you an idea. So let me share with you this idea. It's not a new one, but I'm trying to operationalise it in a slightly different way. So my name's Jen O'Brien. I work at the University of Manchester. And at the moment, I'm particularly working at the Urban Observatory, which runs through the university. And I'll tell you about that in a minute and how it works. But I am really interested in partnership and partnership to affect change and sustainable change. And as I say, this idea isn't new, creative. Sorry. Yes. Yeah. Say hello. You'll be okay. Don't worry. All right. So the way that we're trying to do this is slightly different. The Urban Observatory, I'm aware that some of you may have come across us before. We're trying to affect sustainable change, basically. We're drawing upon data sources that exist already across the university, across the city, very much working in partnership with different organisations, drawing upon what's there as well, so accessing data that already exists, and you'd be surprised how much of it does. Forgive me, I can't quite see everyone who's here today, but I'm sure some of our partners are there. We've been working with TFGM, Manchester City Council. The idea is we're trying to make this data available, accessible. Now, I'll be honest with you, I get on my soapbox quite a bit about the difference between data being available and data being accessible. And that's my role within the Urban Observatory, to make it as accessible to as many people as possible. But we work in partnership, and all of this data is available through our new platform, Manchester Eye, which if you go to the Urban Observatory is there for you. We've done a lot of work with the Bee Network. We're doing some sampling at the moment around Lebenshume. It's all there for you to access. It's open source, free to all. And we also have a load of kit. So this is all available. We have a portable optical particle spectrometer. I think if you can say it, let alone use it, you're a better person than I am, which is all freely available. So if you have a scroll through our website, we've got all this material, all of this equipment that's there, and anyone's welcome to use it. Perhaps one of my favourite pieces of kit at the moment, we've just taken delivery of a whole load of personal air quality monitors. We're heading towards Clean Air Day this Thursday. I'm deploying this with my students at the moment. Really simple tech, great way to empower people around awareness of air quality. It all becomes colour coded, it's linked through to GPS. And all of this material is free for anyone to access. People chatting at me, let me just see what's going on here. Within the spirit of partnership, so I work in sustainable development, broadly speaking, and specifically within that, I've been working within the Sustainable Development Goals. And I'm sure most of you have heard of them, heard of how they work. This is the UN's project. It's a blueprint for a better world by 2030, leaving nobody behind. So these SDGs are as applicable in Manchester as they are in Milan, via Mozambique and Malawi. Now within that, there's this focus on partnership. So it's a specific goal within the SDGs, but it's also a way of being. It's an ethos. So the SDGs have this 5 level of priorities. The triple bottom line for sustainability, which I'm sure everyone's familiar with, so people, profit and planet. And this year, moving on from the MDGs, they brought in partnership and peace as well. And this is where I'm using partnership as an ethos, as a way, as a pedagogy, as a way of teaching and learning and moving beyond those metrics. So any academic worth their weight in chalk dust would critique the role of metrics in higher education, unless it's a metric that they're doing well in. And we're doing really well at the moment in the SDG rankings at the University of Manchester, according to the Times Higher. But I want to move beyond the tick boxing. So I use education for sustainable development as my grounding theory. That aims to be empowering, it aims to be transformative, because my thesis is that our students represent a 40,000 strong force for positive change. And that is a force, it's a strength that's underutilized, it's under-harnessed. Why write yet another essay when you could do something that has impact, is useful, and it could literally make a difference? So what I've been playing with is this idea of a living lab. And this is my open invitation for partnership, building upon the theory of the University Living Lab and applying it within pedagogy. So this theory now, it's a good 5 or 6 years old, heavily critiqued. And the critique that I would add to that is an undervaluing of the role of students. So I've linked through to a concept note there that's in my Dropbox. If you can't access it, please feel free to drop me a note and I'll very happily send it to you. So delighted to be working with Steve at Creative Concern to build this platform that's brokering that 40,000 strong force for change with people that need research doing. You're okay, chicken, don't worry. People that need research doing. So we've gone to a load of external organisations. We've gone to Friends of the Earth, gone to ARUP, gone to Manchester Council, and basically said, what do you need researching? What would you like to find out about? And what we're doing is brokering these research opportunities with our students. So again, rather than writing an essay, let's get them doing a piece of research that could be used, it could be useful for you. We're piloting this now for 4 or 5 years. Already, I've had students employed by the organisations that they did their research for, so kind of cheaper way of advertising for new employees. This year round, we're particularly looking for desk-based work because, of course, due to the lights of COVID, we're limited in how much field work that we can do. Thank you. And of course, we can access all of the university. They say never work with children. Yeah, we're here, look. They say, and we're going to access all of the kits at the University of Manchester. So the idea is that the platform will make this publicly available, and it's a model that's scalable. So we're working across Manchester at the moment. That could grow nationally and even predominantly possibly taking it internationally. And this is the idea of partnerships, so bridging together, brokering our students, that 40,000 strong force for change, with research needs. And from all organisations, smaller ones that perhaps couldn't afford consultancy, or maybe you want a little bit of seed corn insight before you employ a consultant, utilising our students' experience, our students in that space. And what I'd really welcome is ideas of where to go with this. So, sorry, you invited me to do this yesterday. It's my shift tonight, so you're just stuck with the kids, I'm afraid. And what I'm really interested in is where we can take this. So it's absolutely a scalable partnership. This is where we could broker with the kit at the Manchester Urban Observatory, do some more monitoring, get our students involved in looking at air quality, for example. You do want to look at internships, CPD, executive education. Where can we go with that? And to link through to a very tacit example that came out of our research links with students, Clean Air Levenstream asked us to think about ways that we could visualise air quality. So it's Clean Air Day on Thursday. A lot of people know about the dangers of a PM 2.5 reading, but don't necessarily know what that means, how you can see that. So the tagline is that you wouldn't drink in visibly dirty water, but every day we're breathing in visibly dirty air. So how can you visualize that? So the image here actually represents a PM 2.5 reading of 40. We made it out of a torn up pizza flyer. And we're inviting people, the links through to our website there. There's enough science to be interesting for parents, but it's deliberately a really accessible exercise that starts to visualize air quality and therefore open conversations about what that means. Because the other awareness I have is that often we're talking to like-minded people, we're preaching to the choir, as it were. So how can we extend these conversations in a way that's accessible and bring more people along to the story? So if you had a minute to have a look at the exercise, please feel free to tweet it, grow the movement, have a look yourself. But that's the kind of stuff that I'm doing at the moment, trying to make this data more readily accessible to what I see as a change makers, so people on the street. So just 2 random examples. A friend of mine called this exercise wonderfully daft, which is an accolade I'm very proud to take. But just 2 examples of how we're trying to operationalise partnership through the Urban Observatory. Okay, I'm going to leave that there and just check no one's killing each other in the other room. But if you've got any questions, I'd be very happy to take them.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. That was brilliant. We're we'll have to have you back to do a longer session, I think, now that you've got us all going. But yeah, I love the air quality one. I remember seeing an art piece where they coloured all the air to let people know how dirty it was, and definitely think it's a good idea to engage with the students, get them to do research that we can use. Oh. Anybody got any questions for Jen? Definitely worth checking out the stuff. So we'll move on because we've got one more speaker. But Jen, please come back and tell us a little bit more detail. We've got a whole bunch of geeks here that would really like to know some more of it. So if you have time, that'd be fantastic. And I'm bringing you a guest speaker as well. It's been good. Jane, are you there? Mums?
Hi. Hello.
Hi. Hi. Yeah, the floor is yours. Sorry to keep you waiting so long.
Oh, no worries. No, Chris Paul basically invited me along and said, I'm from Mums for Lungs, said, did I want to chat a bit about school streets? But it's kind of like preaching to the converted, really. I don't need to tell you about school streets, do I? But I suppose because we're based in London and we mainly deal with London stuff, maybe it's useful to try and just get our resources out and try and collaborate and help if anybody needs any help, you know, reaching out to people, parents, whatever. Can I share my screen? Yes, I can. Yeah, so obviously you know all about school streets. Just a little very quick bit why we love them. They reduce traffic, create a safer environment, they encourage active travel, obviously, improves health and learning outcomes. They raise awareness of air pollution, the need to reduce traffic, and they're just a great way of starting to transition away from car is king, is how we think about it. I should have said, in case I didn't really start properly by saying, I'm part of Mums for Lungs and we campaign for clean air in London. And we've been doing a focused school streets campaign for about 18 months now, reaching out to parents and councils and schools. So that's why we love them. And obviously now, because of COVID, there's a whole pile of emergency school streets going on. So with gear change being a policy paper, of course, government policy, which is very exciting, and they're committing to creating more school streets. Quite whether that how that develops, we don't know. Out of the 33 London boroughs, 27 at the moment are committing to implement or have already implemented school streets. So that's what would be amazing, would be to get those other 6 involved. The first one was in Camden in 2017. Pre-COVID, there was about 85 in place, and by the end of the year, apparently over 450 should be implemented, which is massive and pretty exciting. So we're kind of like really wanting to help. It's a great time for people to try and escalate that. If you've been wanting one for years and your council hasn't said you can have an emergency one, now's the time to be banging on about it even more, which is what we're trying to do. So we created a whole pile of resources. If parents are just starting out with it all, we've got flyers, briefings, this new campaigning guide we've done, a template letter you can write with all the stats about air pollution and why school streets can help. And if you're kind of continuing on with that, we've got a Facebook group you can join. And if you've already got a school street or you've just got one, we've made these posters to put up to say, we love it, more please. And also we sort of have been forgetting to say actually that obviously important to respond to the consultation and say yay, a bit like with LTNs, there's a lot of shouty negative voices, aren't there? But if you love something, it's so important to just say, this is good. For Clean Air Day on Thursday, we're making a short video about why we love them too, so watch out for that. And obviously there's a whole pile of other resources, Hackney's brilliant toolkit, the recent evidence review, which is great for showing people that actually traffic displacement worries might not be such a massive thing. Sustrans, School Streets Initiative has some great stuff, Living Streets, Car Free Day London. So if for any reason you find yourself in a situation where people want to know more or need help, we're up for it. So email us, we're happy to chat on the phone. And that's kind of it really. Having been invited by Chris, I'm not sure if that was quite what was expected, but there we go. I'm going to stop my share.
No, that's great, Jane. I will definitely invite some questions. And the idea with beers started with invites from Chris. So,
right, okay.
is the man that originally put it together. Has anybody got any questions for Jane about that? I mean, I think your materials that you produce are really handy. I've been trying to get people to use it in our local area because our school situation out in the Shires is a complete nightmare. Yes, one of these days we'll have a school street in Hertfordshire. You know,
I do think it must be, I mean, we're so urban, you know, I do often think about how it could work in rural areas and when people are more reliant on cars. I don't know how that would be.
Well, we're on the London News. We're on the London News, but like that's it. It's like a small town. It's definitely busy enough to do something like that.
Right.
30 people, but yeah, I mean, like our school drop off is total carnage at the moment. You know, like 3 major schools, like narrow but really busy road, like less than half a metre footway, and just kids all over everywhere and speeding cars. That's the picture right here. But you know, we're lucky to have a footway, frankly, in those rural areas. But yeah, good to hear. Has anybody got a question that's better than my one for Jana?
I have, Brian. Sorry, it's me again. Forgive me for having spoken a lot tonight. We managed to get in place the only school street in Northamptonshire, which started trial at the beginning of term, and we are on the verge of losing it at half term already. Largely because a lot of the enforcement methodology that you have in London, we don't yet have the means to use. So obviously AMPR is not an option. The thing that's going to kill it, and I mentioned it in the chat, is that a lot of other schools in Wellingborough are now looking on and saying we'd like one too. And as a result, the local authority have redoubled their efforts to kibosh it, is what we're sensing, because they're worried about having to do lots of them. So far, though, our feedback from parents has been less than stellar, shall we say. We've got to the stage where the natives love it more than the parents do, I think. But ultimately, the council are currently insisting on spending £465 a day on highway staff to man either end of the road. And the cost profile of it is obviously going sky high. We've got very few parents willing to make the commitment. And we've got relatively little, the school are on board, but the staff are stretched in terms of their ability to close 2 ends of a road. So I wonder what light you could shine for us in terms of how you've managed to make some of these sustainable in terms of the manpower requirement to just do the closures at either end of the road without doing a blanket closure that stops the residents from getting in and out, and bearing in mind that we can't use cameras in the way that you guys can.
That is a really tough one, because the only answer I would say is you've got to have those people, or you've got to have the cameras. And if you can't get any volunteers, I mean, it shouldn't be done with volunteers, because that's a really crappy position to put somebody in, like a parent or whatever. It's not sustainable. It needs to be school staff, or it needs, you know. I mean,
we contemplated whether we did used to have a school crossing patrol that got withdrawn about 4 or 5 years ago, and we wondered whether either that or setting on the lunchtime staff and the school funding it that way to have, you know, doing it like you do lunchtime supervisors or something like that. We wondered if anyone had come up with any other ways of doing it, because as I say, we've got the whole of Northamptonshire looking on, lots of people saying they'd like to do them too, and the council are telling everyone, wait and see what happens with the pilot one in Wellingborough, and we fear we could lose it, and it'll bring down everyone else's aspirations with it.
Oh, that's really, really hard. I'm sorry, I haven't got anything. Yeah, I haven't got a magic wand to wave, unfortunately.
Yeah. I would just say it's like a classic kind of council response of raising expectations, like, oh, everybody will want it if we do something good there. Can't we just miserably eke out our existence till the planet's over and we don't have to worry anymore? I'm hoping it's not like that. I kind of paint that vivid a picture, but it is a tricky one, how you keep these things going, like particularly if there's particular parents that are involved and then they move on to the other school, and how you do it. I suppose, is that Camden one the longest one that you're aware of, Jane, in London? Is that still functioning well?
Say that again, sorry.
Is the one in Camden, is that the longest one you're aware of? Is that still functioning well? Is it like just embedded
as
now?
far as I'm aware. I mean, there was, yeah, in terms of permanent school streets, I try off the top of my head, there was maybe like 15 or 20, and I mentioned the 85 figure before COVID. Some of those were, you know, still trialed, but as far as I'm aware, there's the ones in Hackney, the one that was on a London Fields Primary, which is on a bus route. They've managed to do that and make that successful. So yeah, I mean, it's once you get, it's like with LTNs, once you get used to it, it becomes a thing, doesn't it? That people love and want to protect, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely when you get outside London, there's still a bit of reluctance. Like, what will it entail? Oh my God, the hassle, and yeah, you do need to break the back of that. It's a terrible example, but I remember when we were trying to get the first feet hanger, like the bike hanger in Camden. It took me about 2 years of like appeasing everybody, and that was just to drop an object. To do the school streets, those first ones can really take a lot of planning and effort, and the local authorities are feeling a bit squeezed. So I can see why people might think, oh my God, if this takes off, we've got this amount of hassle every time for one minor change that people don't even really seem to want, judging by our mailbag. But the message I would give, and I think you're giving, is like it get easier and easier and easier, and it's just like roll these things out. It's also going to be a little bit dramatic.
Sorry, Tom. I hope it manages to stay. It's hard being the prototype, isn't it?
We're desperately hoping that we can get other people from the active travel community on board to say, look, this as a flagship, there's an awful lot of other things hanging on this, because we didn't get any low traffic neighbourhoods. We didn't get anything else of the sort. We have this one school street. It's working. It's brilliant. We love it. The parents are 50-50 love-hate with it probably. But it's doing the business, and we know that we're kind of afraid of ours getting dragged down now and it doing everybody else a disservice, because they'll say, see, it wasn't viable, it didn't work. Of the ones in London, how many are actually being manned by either school staff or parents on a daily basis?
That I don't know, but I know that some like Lambeth was saying that because of insurance, they couldn't use parent volunteers. It had to be school staff. Whereas there are others like, I can't remember, I was going to say Bromley, but I'm not sure that's true, that are saying it has to be parent volunteers because the school staff, there isn't enough of them, or, I mean... Yeah,
we're being told that people have got to have highway training to stand in the road. And that's been one of the things that they've put to us. But also, Northants are intent on reinventing the wheel about what barriers you use as well. So the folding bollards that I know were advocated in the Hackney Toolkit, they don't like those. They've talked about gates. They've talked about lifting arms like in a car park, all sorts of weird and wonderful stuff. So we can't even get agreement at the moment. But they're spending £465 a day on having a bloke either end of the road sat in his car waiting to let the residents through at the moment, which is preposterous.
And how much were they paying the lollipop? Was it lollipop people you were saying before?
Oh, goodness, yeah. The lollipop person was probably on a fraction of that. But exactly. I think this is potentially designed to artificially inflate the cost of it in order to demonstrate that it's not viable long term, sadly.
Just a quickie.
Oh, go on. Hold on, Bob. I've just got a couple of people that were queuing up with their hands. I'll come back to you in a minute, but I'll do Simon, then Megan, and then Bob. That sound good, Simon?
I think Tom, I was just going to say, Tom, like my experience over and over and over again with London boroughs is, I think you've absolutely nailed it there. Is this genuinely an attempt to undermine the entire process? And if it is, and that's where you think it's going, the answer is to find some other ways and just keep coming back at them and saying, well, have you tried this? Have you tried that? Have you tried that? And saying, if this fails, you're doing nothing. You're doing nothing. Is that really what you want? So I think you have to kind of go at them a bit and goad them into some form of action here and making it work. The idea that all across England we're seeing school streets go in, hundreds of schemes, as Jane said, and Wellingborough can't manage one. They've got to be able to do that. And it's got to be pretty embarrassing if they fail on the first hurdle, as it were. So I think making it their problem to solve would probably be but giving them loads of ideas and ways to solve it.
Yeah, and telling them the first one's the toughest. Let's have a ray of light in there. Megan, did you want to come in? And Bob?
Just a couple things. So one is building up a sense of actually how the parents and the school kids do feel. Making them, hopefully it's more than 50-50. It's probably, I'm guessing, probably more like 70-30. So, is there work, if the school's keen, is there work that the school can do? Are they monitoring how the kids are coming in, even just a really simple tally sheet, and get a maths class to turn them into bar charts, or, something like that to get that data. build up that enthusiasm. If there's some people that are willing to have a photograph and a quick quote in order to, again, just show that enthusiasm, show that excitement, make it harder for them to take it away from people. So I would actually I would try to make it a problem for them to take it away. And then I would acknowledge that it's tricky for them to do the logistics and try to be as much help as you can to remove those barriers that they're finding. So talk to us at Sustrans. We're involved with quite a few school streets, so it might be that we can put council officers in touch with other council officers and talk through. So that's something I'm doing at the moment between a couple different local authorities, for them to just think through like the liabilities issue, the issue that they have about training volunteers. You know, they're risk averse for a reason. It's because they don't want to have a lawsuit. So, you know, acknowledging that, but then showing that other people have done it, other people have overcome it, I think is really important. Acknowledge that it's hard, you know, on the one hand, and try to help the officers as much as you can to say, you know, I know that this is tough. Let's find some solutions. Let's see what other people are doing. But then on the other hand, in terms of the counselors, try to make as much enthusiasm for it as possible. I mean, ask the counselors if they can come down and volunteer for a day. They get cute pictures with happy families and kids and constituents whilst they're supporting a scheme.